Welcome to our Intro to Scrapbooking. I'm Tessa Chappell, and I'm joined by Megan, and we are going to go through a basic layout today, and then we're going to talk about a little bit more. You can add to it if you want to, add a little bit more style to it, or we can keep it simple. I'm going to turn over to Megan, and she'll introduce herself, and she's going to kick us off with the basics today, and I'll see you guys back here in a little bit.
Hello, as Tessa mentioned, I'm Megan Jax out here I'm on the West Coast. I'm just north of Seattle. So many of you have joined us before for things, but some of you might be new, so welcome. Um, I just want to as we're going here, just a quick reminder, we are recording this. So if you please stay on mute. If you have a question, go ahead and type it in chat and we'll do our best to answer. Many of you, when you filled out the registration, we asked for questions, things you wanted to know more about. And you guys had a great variety of answers, some of which we'll probably be able to address right here in class as we're working along, things like paper choices, using the trimmer, all those kind of basic things. Other items were, things like how do you cluster embellishments and how do you do this and how do you do that? Which are things that kind of open a little bit of that can of worms that you can be like, oh, we can have a whole conversation about that. So we're going to take some of those questions and actually bring them into our ideas and inspiration group and open them up as conversations to have. So if we don't answer a question today, just know that we aren't ignoring your question, but that some of the questions are things that probably need a little bit more in-depth answering, or we wanted a little bit more time to be able to maybe show some visual examples of things. So for today's layout, hopefully you guys were able to get our download that we have for you, and it's from Creative Memories. It's their beginner project recipe from quarter 1. So for those of you who are not familiar with what a project recipe is from Creative Memories, it is going to be a handout that shows you how to make a 2-page layout. And here they've given us what they call a sketch. So up here is a finished layout, has the photos and all the pretty designer papers. Down here, they give us a black and white sketch to give you an idea of what the foundation of that layout is. And then the second page includes the cut guide. There's a single cut guide here with some directions on how to make the layout. So this handout uses a pack of paper called Homebody, but you could really use any paper pack. So hopefully you have some photos with you. Maybe you have some paper. You'll want to have a basic straight trimmer. I'm going to be using the Creative Memories rotary trimmer. So I'll show you some quick features of that as we're going along. And I am going to briefly talk about how I selected my paper for my photos. And I'm also going to then walk you through the layout itself, talking very basics of it's a basic layout. Couple cuts. We're going to use some adhesive. We'll talk about the couple main types of adhesive. And then we'll also talk about cropping photos. I have not cropped any of my photos yet for this layout. So I will show you, I will walk you through how I crop mine. Tessa maybe will show you how she crops hers. We do a little bit of a different approach for ours. And then after I put my basic layout together, I'm going to be tossing it back over to Tessa, and she's going to walk you through how she's going to do her layout. She may be take it a couple steps further, utilizing, I don't know what she's doing. I'm going to turn it over to her for some a little bit more, and she will actually walk you through a little bit of like the embellishments and journaling and titling. I will have those added to mine, but you got to give her something to do, right? So we'll let her talk a little bit more about the embellishments and things like that. If you did not get the handout, you might need to check your spam. If you got this email to get the Zoom link, you should have the handout. It should be in that email. There should be a link to be able to print it off. If you did not, we will be sending out a second email after class is over with the recording, and you'll have it in there. But I'm going to promise you, you probably can follow along even without the handout. This is pretty basic, a pretty basic cut, but what's great about it is you're going to see scrapbooking does not have to be hard. It does not have to be very intense, different cutting. I mean, we're going to do this is pretty straightforward. So, all right, I'm going to flip over to my table and you guys will see what I've got going. All right, so I have some photos. I got a ton of photos here that we had when we were down in Palm Springs earlier in December for Christmas. We were so excited to get some sunshine. Like I said, I am from I live in the Pacific Northwest, and it's dark and cold and miserable in the middle of December up here. So, um, for my layout, I have two background papers. You do need two background papers. I am using two of the same. In the layout example that they give you, they use two different ones from the, you can see here, they use a kind of a greenish and a lighter. You can see the green at the top and the bottom of the right page or the left page at the top and the bottom. And then this middle section here shows that the right page is kind of that creamy background. The paper that they're cutting is this paper. I actually have a sheet of it here to show you guys. Is this paper that looks kind of like a rug. The paper that I'm going to be cutting is this blue ombre paper. I'm using paper from the Totally Tonals Baby Blue collection that Creative Memories has. I wanted to talk briefly about how I made my paper choices. I went very tonal, as you can see here, with my stuck with the blues. The reason is because my photos have, they've got some wonderful blue sky in them. I'll just lay them out here. I've got a selfie, got my husband lounging on, he was so excited to lay in the sun. I have three photos of the same thing because you see here, he's got his sweatshirt and his jeans. He took off the sweatshirt, laying in the jeans, and then he went in and put on shorts. And I thought that was hilarious. And just some additional photos here. So you can see I've got the blue sky. But one of the reasons, well, I said, okay, can I pick up any other colors? When I choose my layouts, if I don't have something that's specific matching the theme, I mean, these are just some outdoor backyard photos. Sunshine, I'm wanting to show off how pretty the place that we rented, the backyard is, because I totally rented this place just based on the backyard. And so now I was like, okay, well, what other things do I want? Do I want to bring in some green? So I went over to, I pulled out actually some things from the Tropic Time collection. I thought, well, what about the green? Or there is this yellow color. Well, what if I wanted to incorporate those? Well, one of the things I really wanted to include some blue. So then I started playing around with it. Did I want to include some green? Well, I liked the green wasn't so bad. It wasn't, I probably could have gone with the green, but then I was a little bit like, well, it started to get a little bit more contrasty. Over on this side, I was going to have green at the top and the bottom, or vice versa. And it was starting to blend in a little bit more to my grass. You can see that my grass doesn't, the greenery of the grass doesn't stand out. Then I said, oh, what about the yellow, bright, sunny? I have this really pretty paper. It's got the sunshines on it. I thought about, what about that? Well, then when I put that over here, it's like, oh, it starts to pick up the color of the house, and it just wasn't pulling out the colors I wanted it to do. So for me, when I'm choosing my colors, I put it out there. What am I trying to accent? What am I trying to not accent? I didn't necessarily want to clash with my green grass. The grass is looking just a little bit yellow. They not quite as a dense dark green, maybe, as we'll see in more into the summer. But I ended up just saying the blue was perfect. I decided to go tonal with it. And what that's going to let me do is bring in some other elements, things like titles and little, maybe things like punch. I could use the embellishments out of the Tropic Time collection. I've got some palm trees. I could use, there's some stickers. I've got borders, all the other little accents. By keeping my backgrounds fairly neutral, I'll be able to come in and pull in little accents with borders or stickers. So when you're starting out, I think playing it a little safe with your backgrounds can be helpful. The tonal papers that we Creative Memories has, or wherever papers you have, sticking a little bit more tonals can do that for you. So I did decide to go with the sticking it just within the tonal packs here. Creative Memories does a great job with the paper collections. If you stay within the collections, that can help you coordinate your paper. I will say for my backgrounds, I definitely like to use a more neutral background in terms of tonal, meaning it's not high contrast. There's not a lot going on in the paper. Something like this is going to be more of what we call a statement print. It has a lot going on in it. You can see there's lots of patterns, lots of color. This one isn't too high contrast, but it does have a lot going on in it compared to something like this. Or out of this same homebody paper pack, you can come over and you can see the difference between a tonal piece of paper and a statement print that has higher contrast. All right. So I decided to go with the blues. If you need help with picking your colors, like I said, stay within a collection. Look at your photos. What colors do you want to pull out? I wanted to pull out the blue sky. I thought that was nice. It also really lets all the other colors, the greenery is just going to pop right off because I don't have any other green paper on here to draw your attention away from that green. One of the things you can do if you're really unconscious about color and not sure how to do it, you can pick up a color wheel. You can get them off of Amazon. I actually need to order one of those. I keep telling myself, I think it's in my cart on Amazon to order one of those. And so, you know, picking paper is, we could have a whole hour-long discussion about picking paper. So like I said, I am sticking with very tonal pieces. There's my other piece. All right. So the next thing, once we've got our paper picked out, we need to actually start putting the layout together. This is the piece of paper that I'm going to be cutting. It's an ombre. I'm using just the one side. I'm not worried about what's on the other side. I'm just going to be using one side. If you wanted to mix it up, you'd be able to use both sides. Maybe Tessa can probably show you with hers, or I'll show you with mine, that you can experiment and see if you like it. You may not like it. You may just want to use the one side. So for this layout, we need a trimmer. We're going to just be making 2 cuts. This is the paper that I'm going to be cutting. When I cut it, I am going to be cutting. I want each piece to have that full ombre effect going from the dark to light. So I will want to make sure that my cuts reflect that. So that's the other thing when you're looking at this paper for this particular cut guide, is you want to make sure, let me get that piece of paper here. They show you making 2-inch cuts from the top of the paper. But you need to look at your paper and decide, can I cut 2 from the top? For this paper, I can. My paper, is the same all the way across. I mean, there's a difference between left and right, but top to bottom, there's no difference. However, if I were to be using something like the homebody paper, I can't make 2 cuts 2 inches across the top. I would actually need to cut 2 inches from the top and 2 inches from the bottom because of the pattern and the direction of the paper. So that's something you need to think about when you are going to be using your paper. If you have a direction to your paper, if you have trees or some other pattern on here where you want to make sure that your tree tops are going the right way. So just keep that in mind. So I've got my ombre paper and I'm going to use the Creative Memories trimmer to cut my paper. The cut guide shows cutting across the top, but I actually have to turn my paper this direction to actually make those cuts. Generally, you would use your trimmer from top to bottom. You could use it the other direction, but top to bottom is always going to be probably the easiest way to do it. I know many of you are probably familiar with the Creative Memories rotary trimmer. I did within the event group or the event listing, I shared the trimmer video that we have that talks more about the features of the trimmer. This trimmer came out in 2019 and it's pretty slick. One of the best things about this is that you can easily swap your blades. There are different styles of blade. I have the straight blade in here. You can swap out to other styles. They have something like a wave blade, and these cartridges just swap out super even. But we're going to stick with the straight blade today. So we have our the arm of the, this is actually like the blade guide. It's a metal arm. You can see it has a couple of rulers on it. We have another ruler that comes out to the side. This is technically what we call the arm. It has a little leg that can flop down underneath. All these features I talk about in that video. So you definitely want to watch that. I don't want to go too in detail with all the features of the trimmer. The main ones that we need to do, We can have our arm out here if we want to. We have our straight blade in here. And I'm going to go ahead and insert my paper. I am going to cut at 2 inches. So I find my 2 inches on here. It's on the trimmer. And I'll slide my paper in, lining it up at 2 inches. Now I can line up at the bottom or you can line up at the top. That comes down to personal preference. I have a tendency, because I'm right-handed, I have a tendency that I just come in here and I just bring my paper down and I kind of pull it towards me. But you might want to come up here and line it up at the top. You want to always make sure that you feel that resistance straight across. So I can feel making sure that I'm clear up here at the top, lined up, and here. Same thing if I were at the bottom. I want to make sure that I'm lined up flush at the bottom and I can see that 2 inch, I'm lined up equally on 2 inches there. And I'll go ahead and cut 2 inches. There's one of them. Bring it over and I'm going to cut a second one. Right here is all the cutting that we need to do for this layout. All of the paper cutting. We're done cutting paper. That is as simple as it gets. 2 2-inch strips, plus we have an 8-inch strip remaining. So I do see a quick question. I am using the Totally Tonals blue, or I think it's called baby blue papers. So that's what I'm using for my layout. I'm going to set my trimmer aside. Got my pieces here. Pick up my photos a little bit. I'll address those in a minute. One of the things I want you to think about, you may have noticed my photos aren't going to follow their sketch exactly. And that's okay. I want you to think about this. Any sketch that you see, I want you to think about in 2 ways. 1, you're creating a background. And 2, they give you a suggested arrangement of photos. The background and the suggested arrangement of photos can go together. They can also be used separately, meaning I could use this arrangement with photos with any background that it works with. I could use this background with any arrangement of photos that I need it to work with. And that's how I'm approaching this, because I didn't have photos to match it exactly. So I'm creating the background and I'm going to put my photos on there to make it work. I did stick with using the same 2 background pieces rather than using 2 different ones. I sometimes struggle to do that, to have 2 background papers that are different from each other. So I'm going with the same. I have one of my cutting mats. Oh, there's my second one. The 13 by 13 mat is a pretty awesome product. It has it's a cutting mat. We can use our custom cutting system on it. It also has these rulers on the outside. So when you put your paper on, you can still see the measurements all the way around. That can be really helpful. Because for this one, it's going to let me know that I need to line the top of my paper up 2 inches down from the top. So that's going to let me come over here. I can see over here, it's 10, which is 2 inches from the top. And over here, it's at 2. So that would be 2 inches from the top. The other ones are really easy because they just get put at the top and at the bottom. So here's our background. You can see there, it's pretty straightforward. Now we come into, actually, I can start adhering this down. I'm good with this. If I need to, I can reverse the image pages. I could leave them just like this. I could reverse the pages. I can rotate my pages. Sometimes that depends on the direction of the patterns you've got going. But overall, I like it. I mentioned before, you could flip paper over. You could decide, do I want to use the opposite side? The stars don't fit my theme. So I'm going to stick here. I do want the other thing to think about for this one is I've got the ombre effect. Do I want the dark to the light the way I have it? And I do. And the reason I'm going to do that is I prefer the darker colors on the outside, because that really kind of feels like we're containing things. As it gets light towards the middle, the dark just feels like it's keeping things in. It's giving that nice bookend to the layout. I like those darker colors on the outside. So I'm going to use some adhesive, and there's two different types of adhesive I want to highlight. Creative Memories has two main types of adhesive. So we have a permanent adhesive. It's just called the tape runner. It's comes in these, you can get it inside the the tape runner case. The case opens up, and then you can swap out the actual tape runner. You can get a refill and put that in. And it's just little segmented pieces. They roll on nicely. You don't need to use very much. I think you need less than 1 inch per photo. You can use small segments on it. You'll see here when I put it on, it's small segments. For when you're just starting out and we're just doing the layout like this, the tape runner is fine. This one works great. If you are using something a little bit more delicate, like you're starting to work with embellishments, laser cut borders, or you're getting into some punched borders, our repositionable adhesive is great because it's dotted. It's hard to see there, but you can kind of see those little dots in there. And the dots will only stick to the paper that it touches. So if you have something, here's just a quick piece that I have. I can run my tape runner clear across this, and it's only going to stick to where the actual design is. All these holes, nothing's going to go there. So if you're working with delicate things, the repositionable adhesive is wonderful. It does allow you a little bit of placement. You can move things around. Otherwise, the regular adhesive is great. I'm going to use regular adhesive for this. I'll flip my paper over, and I like to use my adhesive by putting my finger on this spinny wheel as a brake. And I just keep a light pressure there and put on small sections of it. You don't need to press hard. So you can see here, I am just using small, no more than a 1/2 inch segments there. And then it's going to line up on my paper. And we'll do the same thing on the other side here. Top and bottom. And this, then I will have the main background to this layout done. And then you add photos that work for your design. So overall, I'm going to have a photo here. I'm going to have a photo. These photos here. I can crop them down. I could leave them as the 6 inches. And the same thing over here. I do need to crop. So I am going to quickly take you through my cropping. I use Creative Memories personal trimmer. This is the old one. This is the current one we have is the same style, different color. It's more of a creamy white color with the blue, has a gray trimmer bed to it. This one is just the old one. It's a great thing about them. They last seemingly forever. So for these layouts, I don't know that I'm going to trim this side. My 4x6s fit on here just fine. On this side, I want to leave this photo as a 4x6. This photo, I'm going to trim down so that it's 4 inches wide. So you can use if you want to use a ruler to help you place that 4 inches, you certainly can. This is the trimming your photos, getting used to your tool. I would probably recommend, if you're just starting out, maybe play around with some scratch paper. I with the 4 inches, I need to be 4 inches wide. Really what I'm going to do is I'm focused on getting my son's, well, truthfully, what I did is I already came in here and used a ruler. Sorry, it made some noise there. I used a ruler to confirm. Here's 4 inches on my ruler. I use the ruler to confirm that I can get almost all of the lounge chair that he's in that 4 inches. It's hard to see because this ruler has gray lines on it. So on the video, you can't see, but I could see here that I can use the 4-inch ruler or the ruler to help me. I could then grab a photo marking pen and I could come over on the other side and make a line where I want to cut. So that's a great option to use for a ruler if you want to trim your photos. I like to trim to the nearest quarter or 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to trim this at 4 inches, or I'm going to trim that. I just made that mark. I'll spin it around and cut it 4 inches. That should sit on my layout here. The reason I'm not cutting this photo is because I want to have that blue sky in there, and there's my feet. Over here with my husband, I am going to trim off some a little bit from the top of all these photos. I'm going to take it down to probably about, I think, 3.5 inches. So I'm just going to line it up. So I'm at 3.5 inches on the side here. I prefer to cut with the guillotine style personal trimmer. Tessa, you use still the old personal trimmer, don't you? Or the old?
I use the blue straight trimmer.
In general, Creative Memories doesn't recommend using their rotary trimmer to cut your photos. It's the blade, it wears the blade a little bit longer. I think this surface is a little bit more slick. I prefer the personal trimmer here. I like the guillotine cuts. I can make very precise cuts if I need to. And I do like to trim my photos to the nearest quarter or 1/8 of an inch. It's my personal preference. I try to keep things so that I have, I like things to line up. You'll see here, my photos are all going to line up nicely. These ones can come over, cluster them a little bit more in the middle. You can see how that's taking shape. And then on this side here, I'm actually going to sneak these pages a little bit closer together so you can see how it's starting to take shape. So this is going to be my general, I'll probably bring this over a little bit more, leaving a little bit of outside room. The outside is similar on both sides. This is going to be my general layout here. I will still be able to go in, add some embellishment details. But you can see I've got the photos placed. I've clustered them together. I like them being a little bit closer together rather than being separated. You can see here, if I were kind of like evenly spaced them on my 12 by 12, it would be a little bit more like that, but I'm going to bring them a little bit closer. In as such. So that was it is hard sometimes to teach the basics. And it's not hard to do. I do not want you guys to think at all that hopefully this is, you guys are, for those of you who are new, that you don't feel too overwhelmed. I'm going to stop my portion here. I will, of course, be adding additional little elements. I will come back and show you the final layout. But Tessa's going to talk, and some of the rules Tessa's going to talk about. Actually, as she's talking, I will add my stuff using her rules and her suggestions on how she does things, because she does do, oh, there you are. See how I did that?
Right. Megan's going to copy me. Very funny. Well, yeah. I'm still laughing about that one. She's going to do her own thing and then pretend like it's because she listened to me. That's okay.
I do listen to you.
She does listen. She listens more than I think, because usually I go first when we're teaching and she follows me and she does reference things. I'm like, oh, you are listening. And I think she's just off in her own little world because she'll turn her camera off. And so it feels like she's gone, but she's not gone. So she did a good job. It is hard to kind of rewind the language. There's a lot of lingo related to scrapbooking, a lot of abbreviations. It can be a little bit of a tongue twister trying to think about the basic things. So we're going to flip down to my table and we will work through the layout a little bit deeper. So I'm going to start actually by showing a completed version that I did, and then I'm going to do a second layout. So I've been working on my daughter Emerson's graduation pictures. I have a whole lot of them. And so I started with the same cut guide. You'll recognize the 2-inch strips, top and bottom, but you're probably looking, where's the 8x12 piece, right? So I cut that in half. So I added one extra cut for this concept. So it is taking that bottom 8-inch strips and I just cut it in half, and it gave me 2 6x8 pieces. And so I flipped those mats, one for each page. So that gave me a strip for each page. It gave me the 6x8 for each page. The nice thing about most scrapbooking paper, for Creative Memories, every piece of paper, some companies don't, but most paper is double-sided. So you have the choice. This is the same cut of paper. So sometimes both sides of it can give you a little bit of variety in your layout. I often will do kind of like side-by-side photos, and I will just trim them down. So if you have the 6x8 here, you probably have 4x6 photos. And so you just cut them down slightly to fit on the 6x8 mat. Usually the way we take photos, there's enough extra around it. You can trim more than you think you can. You actually are zooming in on the photo a little bit, and you'll be able to take advantage of these 6x8 pieces as photo mats. Over here, I did more of a horizontal orientation and stack those on top of each other. I added in a third photo on this side, and then down here I have one of the variety mats. And so a lot of people are hesitant to get the variety mats that come with Creative Memories collection, but I think they're great because they give you designs and papers that aren't always in our paper packs, and they are easy to sub in. Whether or not you actually use them to mat your photos, they can be used in the design. So I matted the 2 photos here on the 6x8. Over here I added another photo, and then down here I have a 4x6 mat. I added a couple of additional elements with the border stickers. So a lot of collections will come with border stickers. Maybe you have some. This is the graduation paper pack mixed in with the silver and gold collection from Creative Memories. So the graduation day, I did not think I would actually use this background paper. The graduation day is printed on here. But when I looked at this design, I was like, you know what, if I just center the 6x8 down to the right, it actually fits in really nicely. And I use that. So if you don't have a paper that obviously has this big printing, it's pretty unusual. You can just put your photo mat back up here more in the center of the page, or look at all the space up here you have to add a couple of extra photos, or maybe some design. Maybe you want to add another variety mat, you have some embellishments. By adding a couple of border stickers, I really added a lot of to the design. I added in a lot of dimension. You can see a little bit in the camera. These are foiled because of the silver and gold. So in person, it's a really nice effect. These both have foiling in the border sticker. So I just put one on top, one on bottom. We have the gold script ABC. I had a long room down here, and I was like, you know what? I have a lot of space. I can put the full title of the high school. Our high school is so big. When you add in all the family members, there's no way we can put on the football field. So we go to the Indiana State Fairgrounds has a Coliseum. Horses are in there during the summer. Graduation is a few weeks ahead of that. So we have the Indiana Farmers Coliseum title up here. I just added in a little bit of sticker as an accent, added my journaling down here. If you follow Power Hour, or if you see Megan and I, we often talk about peekaboo pockets. I'm not using peekaboo pockets on here, but that's also a way you can add in extra photos sometimes to the design. So that's how I use the same sketch. I made one extra cut, and then I added in some of the embellishment and stickers. And I have a beautiful layout that really was pretty simple to put this together. But Megan is right. So usually the hardest part of the equation is, number one, paring down the photos for me. And number two, choosing which papers to use. So I'm going to be flipping my page in the album and we're going to work on the next 2 layouts. for her graduation day. Again, I have papers from the silver and gold collection and from the graduation pack. These are all from silver and gold. These were came in out of the graduation pack. So my dilemma is, as you can tell, our school photos is red. And so it really does pop nicely against the neutrals. I know on this side of the page that I will want these 4 photos of her actually in this order. So we knew she was walking in on the other side of the Coliseum, but we faked her out. But we actually sat on the other side where I knew I would get better shots when they were approaching the stage. And so here she is, she's looking for us as she walks in. I feel really bad. I didn't warn her we'd be on the other side. She finally turned down her row and caught us. She was so excited when she finally saw where we were sitting straight across from her. And so I know I want these 4 photos over here, and I want to journal that in some regard. Now, I want my paper to be the background, and I really love the dark photo. I like the black to map my photos. Then I have these other choices. You know, when we have that big 8x12 piece, which is probably what's going to go over on the left side, if I don't want my photos on that, I know I could add in a little bit of black. I really want kind of the darker colors behind me. Well, on this sketch particularly, one side or the other is going to be dark or light, depending on how I cut the paper and where I put it. So that was my dilemma a little bit in choosing paper. So I was going to go with the dark for both sides. And on this side, if I want to add in a little bit more black, we'll talk about how I can do that with cardstock. So then I had to choose which of these papers is the one I wanted to cut. This one is in the grad pack. I looked on the back side. If I want the option, I'm not sure that I really wanted the stripes. Maybe, maybe not. So I think I'm going to exclude that one. This is the tassel paper. It's the one I use on the layout ahead of this. It does have this yellow in there. So I have a nice contrast between the 2 sides. If I do want to flip, we've already seen that. It's definitely an option. But at the end, I was like, you know what, I'm going to pull in a new piece of paper. I introduced this little bit of zigzag in the border stickers in the layout before this. It's all the same collection, so it coordinates. On the back side of it is kind of this dark tonal, which I think will work well for the punching I want to do. And so I'm going to go with this paper because I have a good contrast between all 3. I'm going to add in the border maker system. It's kind of a basic creative memories tool for anyone that loves to punch. I pulled out 2 punches I'm going to play with. One is the double rickrack. It's a current punch. It's going to give me 2 of these thin little borders that will kind of mimic the border stickers that I showed. I'm also going to use the chevron arrows. This is a knockout punch is what we call it. You're going to see that it punches and it leaves a straight edge along the top. So it's going to be nice for that 2-inch border that I'm going to cut off, and it will be nice sitting there freestanding by itself on the other page. Grab my trimmer. Myself a little bit of room. So as Megan talked a little bit about direction, I have to think about how I want to cut my paper. I do have a direction to this. And when I have that big 8x12 piece, I know I want it to look like this on this side of the paper. And so my paper would be turned to cut it. I actually lied. I don't really want to start with a trimmer. Getting ahead of myself. I want to start with a border maker system. So instead of cutting that 2-inch strip to begin with, I'm going to punch the edge. I'm going to use the chevron arrows. If you're interested in the border system, if you're not familiar with it, Megan has a great video on our YouTube channel that goes over all the features and benefits of it. I'm going to punch along the full edge. Usually gives a little bit of that comes out of it. So here I still have my straight edge, like I said. This style of cartridge we call a knockout. I still have it. I thought this would be a good one for the beginners to see that we're still going to cut the 2 inches border. I've just already punched it first. Still line up on my trimmer. And I still am cutting my 2-inch. Now I'm going to punch one more time. I'm going to use the double rick rack. Also gives me jewelry. You might like some of these that come out of the rickrack. You get these little rickrack pieces that actually can be used on your layout. So don't always throw away your scraps. You might want them for later in the layout. So I'm going to see what I have left. I should be pretty close to 8 inches. I'm going to have about almost an inch left. I'm going to double check both of them. That punch gave me a clean edge. So it looks like I have about 7/8 of an inch. I'm just going to cut the remaining that I would have had instead of the 2-inch border. I have the strip that's almost an inch, and I have the 2 rick rack. Now I have my 8-inch piece like the sketch originally showed. Now I can work on laying out my layout. I'm using a 13 by 13 mat. There's a lot of cutting mats out there. It's really nice to get one that has the ruled edges along the outside so that when you're adhering to your page, you can line them up fully. I can use my straight edge, or I can mix these around. I can kind of play with it. Maybe I want to do the chevron arrows at the bottom. Maybe I want to do the one into the top. You can look at the other sides, see if you like one of the other patterns that you have. What I do know is one reason why I like this paper is because I wanted to use the rick rack on the other side. I'll be able to piece that around. I can add in a couple border stickers if I want to, or I could punch additional borders out with the rick rack if I want. I'm going to come over to this side. I told you I had these 4 photos I wanted to have over here. Like I said, now they're too big, right? Because I have an 8 inches. That's my photos are going to fill that completely. I need to trim them down. When I'm trimming down the photos, especially if I'm using color in a way that I want it to look pretty cohesive and pretty symmetrical, I'm going to choose the one that I think I can trim down the least. So which one of these would I need to keep the most of the picture? You know, over here, I do want to see the effect of the processional. That's pretty small. Same for over here, same for over here, same for over here. This one I was zoomed out, I was zoomed in maybe a little bit closer, so I'm going to have to crop a little bit tighter or a little bit wider to get that full. So I'm going to start with this one. I can choose which way to cut. I can either, cut towards this way, cut towards this way. I think I might just cut off that boy. I'm going to see the rest of the graduates lined up. I do use, this is a really old 12-inch straight trimmer from Creative Memories. I love it for photos. Not available anymore. But it's just what I like. I think I can cut off about 1/2 inch. And coming on this side, I'm going to start with a full inch over here. I like to measure what I'm cutting off versus what I'm leaving, which is a little bit of the difference between Megan and I. It's just a thought. It's just the way I've done it for so long. It's what I'm used to. So I think that is going to fit in nicely in my space. So I can go ahead and trim down the rest of them. I just need to take off 1/2 inch. That was a full inch on the side, 1/2 inch on the top. where I want to take off the inch. So she's right here in the middle. She's pretty centered. So maybe I just want to take off 1/2 inch on each side. Keep her still pretty centered in the photo. I'm not going to demo it, but before we move on, another step, if you weren't filling all of the space with photos, you could easily trim this piece. So we trimmed here before we cut the border. We could also trim this one. If I trim that one, I'm not sure I have space, but let's see, maybe I could make space for later. You can see that when I punch that edge, I'm going to have to be pushing up. I probably have to cut off like another 1/4 off each. And honestly, this is literally how I scrapbook. I think I'm going a direction. I'll make my cuts with the photos. I'm like, nope, I'm going to cut off a little bit more. And maybe it would be nice to do that because then I could bring that chevron design over to this side of the layout. I could punch it across the top and this one down here at the bottom. You know what? Let's do it and we'll see how much of the photos I need to trim down. I really do prefer matte photos. It kind of depends on the quality of the printing. For a long time, I went with glossy because I wasn't happy with the Shutterfly matte finish that they have for a while. I thought my photos were kind of dull. But Megan and I have stumbled upon Walmart's printing. I think she's used it some. And they offer a matte in their 1 hour department. I printed these at Walmart, 1 hour, 12 cents. And I've been really happy with the quality of printing with that. So matte is what these photos are. It really is personal preference though. With matte, you have less fingerprints that you have to get off. And as you can see, I handle my photos a lot. And so it just saves me a little bit of that work. So instead of cutting all 4, I could also just cut 2 of them and maintain a little bit of symmetry. Obviously, I have some room up here. Over here, I could probably cut off the same amount. She's going to be a little tall in it, so I could probably cut top and bottom. And that would make them a little bit thinner than the top, though. So maybe it would look a little heavy. Or I'd have to flip my chevrons. I wanted the heavier chevron border on the bottom. So it really does. Don't think, when you take class with Megan and I and feel like, oh, we've already thought about all these things if we're not doing it on camera. Sometimes I think it looks a little bit more obvious, but we really do both hem and haul and switch and move, recut, cut again. When you don't see that during class, it's because we planned very well and much better. I wanted to be this a little bit more organic today, so you can see there really is a process to deciding and fitting, even when you have a basic cut. So that's why it's nice to have a basic sketch, because in the end, fitting your photos and customizing to what works for you does still take a little bit of time. I think that's, so if I keep the chevron at the bottom, I'm going to cut still not sure about that. I'm going to cut a full 1/2 inch off here. No, I think I could still do 1/2 inch off these. I'm just going to maybe do one of them split 1/4. Those will fit nicely in there. And my chevron's at the bottom. Over here, I haven't quite thought through these photos as much, so I'm not going to trim them down here on camera. And the pre-events before they got their diplomas. Her friend was a salutatorian, so I have a picture of her up here. The choir, the girl that sang. Like I said, she's really close to Diane, so I have a few extra photos with her in here. I have the principal and I have the valedictorian, and so I will work after class about getting all of these on here so you can see how that turns out. So I'm not going to take these down yet because some of that will depend on the space of where I want the photos. But I can move these borders up or down to frame the photos in between that space. I did have a lot of horizontal because I was using my real camera, not my phone. Usually you take your phone photos, you end up with a lot of vertical. This is my SLR, so I have a lot of horizontal for those. I don't need to have as much titling and journaling on this page because we're just going to try our way through graduation now, but I'll want to journal a little bit over here with the events and who is doing what. And so I do have pulled also, like I said, we have the mats that come, and so I will find one that offers me some space to journal and fits the theme. And if I can't find one, I'll make my own. I'm just cutting out a little bit of paper. I had these pulled. This one worth the wait, that could apply to graduation. This one, it says family fun. This isn't really about family fun, but I could definitely cut that off and use the top part of that for some journaling and maybe save that for another layout. And this one would be nice. It is a large one. It's a 4.5 by 6.5. So if I use this, I'm really going to be taking up a chunk of the page, and maybe I would want to do some with the other one. And a little bit smaller option there with the black. So that's how you can kind of expand your layout a little bit. You can just add a little bit of punching. I have the same strips, the same sizes. It will add a little bit more dimension. Like I said, coming back to my first one, you can see just adding in even the border stickers and add an extra dimension, doing that extra cut to cut that piece in half. Can take the sketch a little bit beyond. And so when I have all of these done, it's not going to be obvious to the viewer that I was making similar cuts with the paper, right? It actually provides kind of a continuity among the layouts, and they're simple. I think that the focus really still is on graduation and the celebration that is. For this first page, I still need to find a little bit of journaling spot down here. I was obviously getting ready to take her photo in front of the sign, and Campbell decided to prance her way and photo on the photo. So I do want to make a little tag about that, something small, maybe in a little circle or square tucked diamond shape in behind that, just to highlight that moment. And there was more, my list was long of ways you could expand the sketch, but I thought, this is going to be overwhelming. For some of them, it is brand new. For some of you, it's not new, but we can save some of those tips and tricks for round 2 when we do this again in June and focus on another beginner layout. So, are there any questions in particular to approaching a basic sketch, any of the tools that we used, anything like that? Good. I don't even see. Yeah, I already know where Megan went on the camera. If you want to follow up with us again, so we do want to encourage you. So if you are participating today, and we would love to see the layouts that you create with these. And we do have our ideas and inspiration group, and we would love for you to post whatever you do with this sketch and just hashtag it Scrap Basics so we can see all the varieties. That's what's really fun sometimes is people approaching the same thing and seeing different takes on it. So Scrap Basics will be the hashtag, and we'll put it in the group, and we would love to see you share. If you like this format a little bit and you are new to us, next Tuesday night is our power hour where we will go through 2 layouts. We usually kind of start with the basics. Sometimes Megan throws in a technique in there that's maybe a little bit more intermediate, but they are fun to do. And the thing about even her techniques is she breaks them down so basic that once you see how she does it, it's pretty easy to follow along. So that's next Tuesday night. It's also free. Because you guys all subscribe to tonight, you will automatically get the Zoom link for that. You don't have to register. So you'll get the Zoom link for that next Monday, and you'll get the handout, and then the recording will follow that. Will be on YouTube also. The punching system, for those of you who do this, the Border Maker system, when I send out the final email with this recording, I will connect to Meggan's YouTube video where she goes over the border maker system in depth of how to use it. So it's great. So you when you buy the beginning system, you'll get the paper holder, the cartridge housing, and it will come with 2 cartridges. And then you can buy these. They put one out every month. You can collect the ones that you like, pop them in and out. And then once they're in here, there's these little grooves on here. They fit into this system. And so you kind of move along, lining up as you go. There's even little marks on here, in the middle of that, on here, and the ruler that help you line it up. So it's pretty great. Her video is pretty great. I'll definitely put that video in there. And the recording will come, the email with that will come by tomorrow morning or maybe late tonight. Did anybody follow along? We have some layouts that you'll be willing to share with us. You will post it in the email, so we want to see what you did. Feel free to send any feedback. Like Meggan said, we'll continue the conversation in the ideas group. She's going to make up some conversation starters and we'll work through kind of the list of things. So if you haven't joined the group, the link will be in the email also. All right, Meggan, what else?
I wanted to just quickly, I'll show you guys, let me swap over to my tabletop to show you. I did finish putting together, I don't know if I listened to Tessa or not. She was saying great things, but then I got distracted. And so here's what I ended up with. I just went in and just some border stickers. We have an amazing arrangement of various border stickers that you can use. I just flanked both sides, pulling in that yellow, the golden, pulls in the golden from the things. Couple of stickers here, kept it very simple. And then I've got some space down here that I'll be able to add the journaling. So I'm really pleased. Oh, I should highlight, I use the matte pack. I know Tessa touched on that. The matte pack made it super easy to find mats that I wanted to mat these 2 vertical photos. So it just takes up a little bit more space, giving out a little bit more of a presence on the layout, bringing in some of that accent color, and then adding the stickers, going with the trio on the page, and then they help carry your eye around. I've got little accents over here. I didn't want to take away too much going on with my photos, so left that pretty simple. But there you can see that's pretty much, except for some journaling down here, this is pretty much my finished layout. So you can see you can do quite a bit with that basic, the basic starter sketch there in those instructions.
This is Tropic Time mats, right?
Those, yeah, this is Tropic. All of my accents are from Tropic Time. I stuck with the tonal blue out of that Totally Tonals baby blue. So they paired really nicely there. I don't know, Tropic Time does have, this is a Tropic Time mat. You can see has that baby blue color in it. So that's at Creative Memories. They came out and told us when Creative Memories came out with their new line, a core line of cardstock colors, they did tell us they were going to start working more of those cardstock colors as into each of these, our collections. So we will start to see, as we're pulling in these totally tonal collections, we're getting 3 new ones every quarter, that you'll see that they'll work as accents for these other collections, because they're all kind of built around our cardstock, our core cardstock colors. Of course, they're going to bring in other colors, right? That accent, not all the colors go together, but they'll bring in other accents, but you will be able to see how the different colors will play in on each other. So thank you all, as Tessa said, for joining us today. We'll get the layout, the recording out to you, share your layouts. Can't wait to see them. We hopefully will see you on Tuesday next week. And yeah, Tessa did misspeak a little bit. The border maker system only comes with picket fence, or you can get the special border maker system that comes, a special edition that comes with the cupcake chain border maker cartridge. But it just comes with one right now. But we do have, there's like another 10 or so out there that you can choose from on the website if you want to add additional ones to start your collection. So thanks for joining us. I believe we're going to start doing this kind of a beginner class at the first Tuesday of every month. So we will see, you're always going to be welcome to joining us. We would love to have beginners, little tidbits every time But the goal is going to be beginner. So, kind of what we did here, where we're really stripping it down, going to be, for some of you that are more experienced, it might be a little bit of repeat information, but we want to make sure that people are new. Can see the basics of scrapbooking, get some of the simple stuff. We don't always have to be very elaborate. A page done is a page done. And we want you to fall in love with creating those pages, reliving your memories, and creating something that your family will enjoy looking through. So I think that's all we have. We look forward to seeing you guys soon. Have a fantastic week. All right. Bye.